There, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Carl Schmitt's Dictatorship. And today we're looking at Chapter 5. It's going to be Chapter 5, I'm dividing it in um, Chapter 5, the custom of the People's Commissars during the French Revolution, right? The question of this. I'm going to divide it into three parts, like I did the previous chapter. Hopefully, that might make it a little more bite-sized portions, right? Today, part one, we'll look at pages 132 to 137. Again, the focus of this whole chapter is on the question of the French Revolution and the People's Commissars, right? Right from the start, there's a footnote that's important. It says that during the customs of the People's Commissars during the French Revolution. So footnote one, right? And title. He goes, in the material that follows, there will be no specific reference to the places in the Bulletin de Lois, the Bulletin of Laws, and the Archives Parlementaire, and the Monetaire, when such places are easy to find from the date. On the other hand, there will be references to J.B. Dugavosque, the okay, this is the complete. Let's go. The complete collection of laws, decrees, ordinances, regulations, and opinions of state council. Henceforth, Duverger. Because of my experience, this collection is more readily available in German libraries, and it also contains references to the collections. In a few cases, interrupt for a second. He says, in a few cases, the Baton collection. This is a note here. It says translation note. First Duke d'Orange, minister under Napoleon. Interested readers may want to look up his book La Police, The Secret Police, a primer. The Secret Police of the First Step, right? Okay, so in a few cases, Bundo's collection will also be brought up, will also be brought in. The number in the bulletin, okay, the Bulletin of Laws of the French Republic, previously the Bulletins of Laws in the Kingdom of France, henceforth the Bulletin, refers not to the piece in the collection but to the laws and regulations, which are numbered consecutively. So that this is how he's referring to things here in this whole chapter. Okay. So he's explaining right away the notes and referencing how they're doing in this chapter. He's going to be doing it a little differently than normal. He says, both the National Constituent Assembly and the Legislative Assembly had decided through their decrees on numerous administrative details. Again, this is number two, where the Constituent Assembly is concerned. Here are some examples. Decrees by which the municipal authority is entitled to take up bonds, to swear in units of troops and officers, to control prisons, and to number their prisoners. To organize the facilities for 17 June 1790, to issue instructions for the authorities in the events of unrest in cities, to withdraw civil rights, and to summon individuals to report to the Reichsbank, the bar of the Assembly. A decree issued 24 February 1791 forbidding the municipal authority of Année de Duc to oppose in future the transit of the lady aunts of the king, their ladyship the king's aunt, the assessment of a single office official act as harmful to national sovereignty and legislative power, a decree according to which the judgment of the municipal authority of Strasbourg in the matter of the rebellion in Stettelstadt should be considered a court of last resort. Instructions concerning the criminal prosecution and judicial sentences of individual insurgents. Most resolutions, though, follow a procedure in which the Assembly, through its president, appeals to the king to take further measures, especially about the riot in some cities. In the decree of 22 March 1791 is decided with regard to the riot in the former province of Maconaz, that neither civil nor criminal prosecution should take place. Dupont de Nemours, in particular, declared himself vehemently against interfering in the administration in the interest of a strong executive. The fact that a law such as general will should always be of a universal nature was, of course, practically ignored by the Constituent Assembly. The most salient examples to illustrate this might be the Hunting Act of 30 April 1790, in which it was stated that a specific law remained reserved for the preservation of the king's personal pleasure. This was then issued on 14 September 1790. Such a practice of lawmaking must have provoked the outrage of true rationalists like Concordat, producing the conviction that monarchy was an institution irreconcilable with the rational organization of the affairs of state. And here are some examples where the Legislative Assembly is concerned, but not the authorization to take up bonds. Numerous legal accusations against individual citizens, intervention in riots, decisions concerning the appointment of civil servants, demands of reports of accountability of the executive. The legislative governed after the suspension of the king on 10th August 1792. On this, see further in the text, right? It says. But the general unfolding of dictatorship consists in the activity of the commissars. These commissars were not just complementing the ordinary officials, and many commissars employed in administration, commissars of police, finance and taxation, commissars appointed to the Ministry of War and the administration of the army, Commissars de Guerre, and so on. They weren't just, new additional. It says not just these were not just complementing the ordinary officials, and the many commissars. They also complemented the general commissars of business, who were sent by the ministries, and even the Commissars National of the Council, or the National Commissars of the Provisional Executive Council. The latter were sent on the basis of the decree of 26 November 1792, and were supposed to abolish the feudal burdens in the newly conquered provinces, to maintain public order and security, to lead the people's election of new officers, to ensure that no counter-revolutionaries were elected, and the like. In short, they should be considered commissars of action. Note 3, decree by the National Convention, edited by Francois Victor Alphonse Allard in the collections of unpunished acts and documents of the Committee of Public Safety on the activities of the National Commissars and their cooperation with military officials. Okay, so therefore this is published here, decrees, then the activities in volume 2. See volume 2 about their activities in court of the National Commissars and cooperation with national military officials, and on the cooperation with the Commissars of National Conventions. See volume 2, page 17. Right, this is the documentation of it. Of all these commissars, one has to distinguish those who were sent directly as representative people. So they have to, of all those, they have to distinguish between those who were sent through the agencies, ministries, and things like this, the existing executive orders, institutions, and those commissars that were sent directly as representatives of the people. The National Constitutional Assembly, which asked the king on several occasions to spend special royal commissars, invested with such powers of action to establish order when uproars occurred either in the country or in the colonies. Right? Okay, during the riots at Ebla in 1791, our commissars were dispatched on the basis of a decree issued by the National Assembly in order to reinstall public tranquility and order. The king was requested to send troops as needed. Also the decree concerning the sending of 3 commissars into the Department of Guard for reestablishing public security. Another decree dating from 12 December 1790 was issued against the public against the disturbance of public tranquility that might have been caused by Belgian troops stationed there. The decree asked the king that all the commanding officers take necessary measures to put an end to the chaos, even with the help of the National Guard if need be. It also requested that the administrative unit, through the military commanders or the directors of the arsenal, supply arms so that the National Guard could be up to the task of protecting private property and securing public order. On 2nd April 1791, similar commissars with special authorizations are sent to LA. With respect to the colonies, through the decree of 29 November 1790 concerning the riots in Antilles, the king was requested to send 4 commissars to those colonies in order to A, gather information, B, to organize provincial domestic administration, police force, and public order. And those tasks were for those tasks, they were entitled to make use of all regular troops, militias, National Guard, and the entire naval army, which had to intervene when the commissars commanded. The commissars could, when necessary, suspend the colonial assembly. With the arrival of the commissars, authority and power hitherto became void until they were confirmed by the commissars. The king should provide troops and liners for the governor of the island or for the mandated officers who should act in agreement with the commissars. So this is this. Besides, the National Assembly could already appoint its own commissars from its own ranks and a specific authorization mandate. In the first instance, though it could do so only for internal and financial issues, commissars for expediting the decrees, for publishing protocols, and for regulating sessions, internal regulations, rules, and this stuff. In other words, it could do it so so therefore, one thing they could do is for internal, to do what? To publish decrees, make sure internal financial issues. With the move to Paris in October 1789, a commissar was appointed to choose the room for this section. Okay, he's just giving the decrees of the. When the commissars of the National Assembly got involved in coinage, in the signing of treasury bills and the instructions, in the paper supply for the assent, and the administration of the public treasury. That's again point to that. But the National Assembly came to exercise a definite and autonomous administration after the flight of the king in June 1791. First of all, it declared that during the absence of the king, its decrees were valid even without his sanction. The post office was urged to resume its service so that the traffic of mail could not be interrupted. It was generally forbidden to leave Paris, and units of the National Guard were deployed. Through the ministers of internal affairs, the Assembly ordered all officials and troops to close the borders so that no member of the royal family could leave the country and no gold or ammunition could be sent to foreign countries. The assembly asked the commander of the Parisian National Guard to justify the means he had chosen for the maintenance of public tranquility and security. So, that stop the king from leaving, stop preventing money and gold and currency and weapons to be sold, transport over that. And then when asked, the assembly asked what he was doing to protect the public tranquility and security. The sealing of the royal palaces was ordered. I think this is the Then three commissars from the ranks um, taken within the assembly, three commissars from its ranks taken from within the assembly, were sent to the border provinces in order to agree and execute with the administrative bodies and the commanders of the troops all suitable measures for the maintenance of public order and security of the state. So there was not only that, in other words, three commissars from within the rank of the National Assembly were sent to the border provinces in order to agree and execute with the administrative bodies in command, leaders of the troops, execute all suitable measures for the maintenance of public order and security of the state. These commissars were entitled to make all the necessary requests. Again, I think this is going to be just a point to decrees. Furthermore, three commissars of the National Assembly, Latour Marburg, Baton, and Barneve, were sent to Varnes. I can never, I'm mispronouncing it, pardon. With the express orders to take all the necessary means for the security of the king and the royal family, as well as their return to Paris. So, therefore, in other words, these three officials were sent to govern the king and the royal family, right? And to return their return to Paris as the king fled. They were invested with the authority to give orders to all authorities and troops, and to immediately and ultimately to do everything they deemed necessary for the fulfillment of the task. In the course of which they also had to take care that due respect for the king was not violated. The decree of the National Assembly of 22nd June 1799 also bore the character of a commissarial authorization, according to which ministers were entitled to dismiss from their posts all suspicious army members of personnel and replace them with others. So if people were suspicious, the assembly ordered the commissarial, those who bore commissarial authorities, to dismiss these people, right? The people who were suspicious or kind of revolutionary or anti-revolutionary feeling. By decree, the National Assembly itself suspended Mboli from his military functions and ordered his arrest. The commissars of the National Assembly who were sent to the border provinces were generally entitled to by the decree of 24th June 1791 to request the necessary means from the administrative and local authorities. The National Guard was placed under the command of lower grade officers, and the generals were authorized to dismiss any officer who rejected the oath of the Constitution and to suspend from office temporarily any suspicious person, although in such cases they had to report immediately to the Minister of War. So, in other words, if they're going to suspend someone for temporary, they had to report to the Minister of War. Finally, the National Assembly mandated a Parisian court to investigate the event of the night of the 20th and 21st June 1791. Right? So this a Parisian court. Right? For the fulfillment of that task, the court had to appoint judicial commissars, but of course, the court was itself a commissar. Had to appoint two judicial commissars, so therefore, the court itself is a commissar. To record that statement made by to record the statements made by the king and queen, the assembly appointed three commissars from their own rank. Okay, this is again pointing to the specific decrees. The Constituent Assembly from 1791 to September 20th September 1792 also intervened through decrees, and frequently, especially in the case of uproars in particular cities, requested the executive, the king, to send commissars to reestablish order and to pacify the population. Here again, the commissars sent to the colonies were vested with exceptionally far-ranging powers, and and although dispatched by the king, they were authorized by the Legislative Assembly to make use of the police, force publique, the public force, the police, to suspend colonial elected assemblies, to take the necessary steps to hold new elections, to retrieve from local authorities all the essential information, to arrest the guilty, and to transport them to France so that they may be tried there, and to recruit those parts of the troops that were normally supplied by the king. They could, by appeal to the legislature, temporarily suspend assemblies and local authorities, or install judicial officers. The commissars who had been mandated with reorganization and the administration of individual districts were accountable to them. In that sense, these people. Okay, this is again decree. On 31st June 1792, the legislative branch appointed its own autonomous commissar for control or examination of the maintenance of the camp at Seon. After the suspension of the executive branch on 10 August 1792, the Legislative Assembly took a number of measures required by the actual circumstances, just as the Constitutional Assembly had done in 1791. And it ordered that in the interest of the internal and external security of the state, all citizens must obtain a certificate of their political loyalty, of their civism, public spiritedness, their civism, civism, their public spiritedness, their local bodies, how spirited, how good, how how much they cared for the civic entity. Local bodies were authorized to prevent the dissemination of counter-revolution publications. Four commissars of the assembly were appointed to review the business of the executive so far, and in addition to the commissar were sent to Soissons on 31st July 1792, six more were appointed. These were to be active in the Army of the North and Center and the Army of the Rhine and report back to the Assembly. When three of those commissars were arrested by the local authorities in Sedan, the Assembly declared through the decree of 17th August 1792 that was an attack on the sovereignty of the people and the inviolability of its representatives. It immediately arrested the guilty local authorities and sent into the province three new commissars from the Assembly who had the power to recruit for the police, force publique, and the army. Any civilian or military officer, any civilian who did not conform to the demands of these commissars, were declared infamous and a traitor to the motherland. The tasks and spheres of authorities of these commissars were subscribed as follows: They were entitled to assemble. They were entitled to assemble the administration wherever they deemed it suitable, convenable, or to be informed and to extract information, to be informed, to be informed, to be told and get information from, and to extract information, and to take all measures needed to promote the interest of the homeland and public tranquility, or to order someone else to take these measures. So if not only were they entitled to go to get information, but to get it, extract it, and they were entitled to assemble the administration where they deemed it convenable. In other words, they were entitled to assemble the administration of a region or state, as they saw it was where they deemed it suitable. They could get informed by the officials, and then extract information, and take on short measures to promote the interest of the homeland, or to order someone else to do this. Right? The entire executive branch was requested to support these commissars. So therefore, the executive branch was under the authority of the commissar. It had to report and maintain, support the commissar, not necessarily the authority of them, but to support them, whatever they did, to do what they needed to be done. Furthermore, these executive agents had the duties to maintain and keep alive the revolutionary atmosphere through the proclamations and education. So for these executive agencies They had to keep the revolutionaries to do proclamations, and with the decree of 17th August 1792, on the basis laid for future exercise of stately power through commissars, or the representatives of the people. In other words, the decree laid the basis for the future continued stately exercise of stately power through the commissars of the representative of people's representatives. For the correspondence with the commissars of different armies, a specific committee of assembly was formed, 27th August 1792. After that, on 27th August, further commissars of the assembly were appointed for the organization of arms and other military needs, and this was done through an instruction that already contained a character formulation for the transition of executive power. The people vested with authority must comply unconditionally to all the requests of these commissars. So there's the line: is people with authority. In other words, the people with authority, people vested with authority, must comply unconditionally to all the requests of these commissars, who can take all the necessary measures themselves if they meet with refusal. On the following day, commissars were appointed for the accelerated recruitment of 30,000 men. After that, commissars were appointed to secure the army's demands for cereal and flour, and these were authorized to suspend all the existing administrative bodies and departmental decisions that threatened the army's demand. Now, Decree 29th August 1792. The instruction concerning the appointment of 4 commissars to monitor the prosecution of threat at the furniture storehouse, 17th September 1792, mentioned by Alphonse Allemand in his Political History of the French Revolution. Yeah, Political History of the French Revolution, Origins, Development of Democracy and Republic, right? Does not seem to be typical of the development outline here. Similar commissars have been appointed in the Constitutional Assembly previously. So therefore, this is all the commissars of the Legislative Assembly were to be distinguished from the commissars of the executive power, who were given only responsibilities that fell under their normal jurisdiction in the country. So again, the commissars of the Legislative Assembly were distinct. They had they had people's power, whereas the normal commissars, the commissars of the executive power, which were given only given their responsibilities that fell under their normal jurisdiction in the country, or the normal jurisdiction. Therefore, the commissars of the executive power, the ministries and things like this, only had their normal rights. The commissars of the Legislative Assembly had supreme rights. They could force those other people to comply, an agency's administration, to do what they needed to be done in that sense, right? The National Convention that assembled on September 1792 confirmed the commissars sent by the legislative branch, and under the pressure of internal civil war and of enemies invading from all sides, it constantly appointed new commissars itself. So the National Convention confirmed the commissars sent by the National Assembly. Yeah. And under pressure of this, it constantly applied new commissars itself, right? So every time the pressures of the civil wars and invading armies, they appointed new commissars. As a result, a complete system of commissarial government and administration was formed, in which the center that gave mandates and issued authorization was the National Convention, whereas the organs were members of that same National Convention. So in other words, the structure of commissarial government was the center that gave mandates and authorizations was the convention, And what happened is, and whereas the organs were members of that same convention, the organs who were executing those things, or given those responsibilities, were those things. Given the amount of business and the number of dispatched commissars were extraordinarily high. On 9th March 1793, for example, 82 members of the convention were sent to the provinces to recruit 300,000 men because resistance to the general conscription was located in autonomously was in other words was located in autonomously administrative bodies, department offices, and to an even greater extent municipal authorities. So therefore, they sent an 82 members. In other words, the example 82 members of the convention itself were sent to the provinces to recruit the new men, because what happened to the general conscription, the resistance to this conscription was located in the local administrative bodies, right, and that is the department offices, even to municipal authorities. These commissars, these special commissars, pointed these 82 men, these commissars became commissioners of action alongside the commissioners for recruitment. So therefore, in other words, you had commissioners alongside the commissioners of recruitment. The people were sent to recruit. They were kind of being stopped, and therefore these guys were sent to action to force with it, right? And they were subject to the Ministry of War. These special ones. Initially, they were given special function only with respect to the offices themselves, but later on, and until Robespierre's downfall, up to the half of the members of the convention were quite often acting as commissars. So in other words, respected to the office, but later on, and until Robespierre's downfall, up to half the number of the convention members of the convention were often acting as commissars. So, with respect to their duty, these commissars were in the same category as the one in the army and the ones in the department. They were, therefore, in respect to their duty, what they were doing, they were complemented by a number of commissars with specific tasks and specific authorizations. The commissars referred to here were all members of the National Convention, right? Taken within the National Convention, members of the taken from the National Convention itself. They were all members taken from within it. They were sent in groups, deputations of three, or up to 9, and frequently even more. They were allowed to subdivide into small groups, but they could always act in autonomous pairs. Okay, again, this is a decree of 1793. Took some decrees. They were given a kind of uniform. Since the decree of 4 April 1793, their official names was okay. I'll translate this here for you guys, and then we'll look at what they representatives of the nation delegated by the convention to do something, right? The national representatives deputy by the National Convention to this person. They had title this place, that place. They were accountable to the Committee of Public Safety once this body was established in 6 April 1793. With that, a uniform organization and at the same time a new development came to pass. Any examination of the rule exercised by the National Convention through the Commissars must therefore distinguish between the periods before and the periods after the establishment of the committee. So therefore you have this moment. Therefore you have to, Schmitt ends this paragraph here, and then what is discussed here is that there's a defining moment. That we need to understand the rule, the examination of the rules exercised by the National Convention through Commissars. We have to distinguish two periods. The one before and the one after the creation of public safety. Because before the public safety, they were often, but after the public safety, they became centralized, organized through the public safety. These commissars were reported, or in other words, it was central. In other words, before the creation of the public safety, they were more constantly reporting to the convention itself, right? And it was more, now you had a centralizing authority. The Committee of Public Safety. We're going to stop here. This is where I plan to stop and break. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please put them in there in the bottom, and please put your questions about the text or questions you had during looking at this. Again, this is. I hope people are enjoying this series in that sense. If you liked it, like it. If you didn't like it, share it, pass it around. Like it, share it, pass it around. If you didn't like it, you can, of course, you can always say hit the don't like button, right? Thumbs down, but say why in the comments. What's wrong? What we can do to, what can be better. If you've not subscribe. Let's go to our channel. If you have any, if you want to follow me on social media, my social media links are below. If you wish to follow me as a scholar, as academic, and that stuff, see my academic work and see my stuff, you can check the links up below those second level links, academic social media links. And if you want to help me to do what I do, we're not monetized yet. We're not big enough. That's why subscriptions matter. I hope we get grow some more. But another way you can do so, becoming a member of Patreon or Subscribestar. Links below. Or another way you can help is to buy one of the books they're doing here. I am at this stage. I think I'm going to try wrapping up. We're going to be. I think at this stage, I don't think there's the Rousseau this week. We're going to be at the time when you see this. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to be nonstop. Try to finish up the Dictatorship, not breaking up with other readings in that sense. So we'll see how it goes. Well, take care. Again, Fridays are always live stream or some sort of activity, live stream, messing around, or a book, maybe a book review or something else. That's something we do. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Have a good one. See you later.